Ahoy there! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another episode of the Catskull Academy, the series that aims to give you the very best start possible in EVE Echoes. Today we're looking at laser turrets, or how to be a filthy Amarr combat pilot. Joking aside, I actually do really like laser turrets. These are great weapons, very versatile with a lot of powerful uses. So today's video we are going to discuss why you might enjoy lasers, why you might want to go down this route as a combat pilot, and how lasers themselves actually work. We'll have a look at the statistics and what differentiates them from other turrets, then we'll have a look at how to progress as a laser combat pilot, which ship to start with, what kind of ships you would progress into from there, and what your skill training path should look like. Now, if you do enjoy this video, let me know by hitting like on it, sub to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, and ding that notification bell so that you know when the next video goes live and you don't miss out on anything. Now, of course, come into the comment section down below or onto the social media channels shown at the bottom of your screen now to let me know what topics you want to see me cover in future videos. If you've got a particular question you want answered, or if you think there's something you'd really like to know more about, let me know down below. Now, everything you see here is done entirely on my phone. If you want to go the extra mile to help support this channel and keep me doing what I'm doing, then you can come find me on Patreon. Details are on screen now as well. And everyone who does support $5 or more is listed at the end of this video, so thank you all so much. Cool, that said and done, let's have a look at lasers. Now, if I go into the cargo hold of this very handsome-looking Punisher, I've managed to get rid of the fact that it's gold and ivory by covering it up with a really cool blue watery skin. Let's have a look at the actual lasers. Now, like with any particular weapon type, there are short-range and long-range versions of this turret. You've got pulse lasers and beam lasers. Beams are the long-range types, pulse lasers are the short-range types. So let's have a look at the pulse laser first. Now, of course, before I go any further, if you want to understand how turrets work and what this all means, the best thing to do is to go watch my How Turrets Work video. I will put a link on screen now and in the description down below to talk about that, so you can go watch that and get an idea of what I'm talking about here first, then come back and watch this. We all good? Cool, let's continue. So when we look at laser turrets, the first thing you should notice is the damage type. These are heavily weighted into electromagnetic, with a splash of thermal damage on the side. Now, EM and thermal both tend to be very good against shields. Shields don't tend to have any resistance against electromagnetic and have very little resistance against thermal, which means this thing, when it fires, tends to cut through that shield like a hot knife through butter. Whereas perhaps, say, something like an explosive weapon will struggle a bit more. Now, because shields tend to be the kind of meta at the moment, especially now with all the free cruisers going around, you'll see a lot of Catskulls out there. Catskulls, for example, are a shield-tanked ship. This means for PvP, lasers are actually probably one of the better weapon systems right now. You can get up close and personal, lock that ship down, and strip through its shields at an astonishing rate. Anyway, to differentiate lasers from other turrets as well, they do have a slightly higher power grid requirement than other turrets might do, and they do use capacitor, which is something that not a lot of other weapon types do. You have an activation cost there for whenever this fires. Cannons don't have this. Laser turrets, however, do. Every time this particular Mark I small pulse laser fires, it will use up 3.3 gigajoules of capacitor. That is something worth mentioning. It does mean Amarr ships tend to have a higher capacitor bank than some of the other ships, but yeah, it's still something to be aware of. Optimal range for lasers, as well, you can see, is the complete opposite of cannons. Whereas cannons start with a very short optimal range, but a long, gentle fall-off, the Amarr pulse lasers instead have a very long optimal range, but a very rapid accuracy fall-off. Here you can see it's optimal at up to 5.25, and then by the time you hit 7.5 kilometers, you're down to 50%. Once you're hitting 10 kilometers, boom, that's it, you're gone. This weapon is at 0% effectiveness. It's that 5 to 10 is a very sudden rapid drop-off, whereas on a cannon, it's good at, say, 1 kilometer, but it'll go all the way up to 10 with a gradual drop-off. Now, if we look at the beam lasers are the longer range version. These are kind of like your strike cannons or your rifled railguns. Again, you can see very high electromagnetic damage, high thermal damage, long optimal range, but a very short accuracy fall-off. You can actually see that even more here. 11 kilometers for the optimal range. By the time you hit 13.5, you're at 50%, and by the time then you're at 16, it's gone. It's that very rapid fall-off, which means you need to be very good at maintaining that exact optimal range, because as soon as you go over it by a little bit, bam, you're missing completely. That means that lasers kind of have a high skill, high reward aspect to them. There's no gentle degradation. You need to be able to maintain that distance very, very well. Anyway, so let's have a look at how you would start out as a laser pilot. If this sounds like the kind of thing you might be interested in, then of course the first ship you're going to have a look at is indeed the Punisher. This is a Tech 3 frigate. It is available seeded in almost every single ITC out there, so it's readily available for, I think it's only about 121,000 ISK as well. Not much at all. A couple of combat encounters will allow you to get one of these, and then you can start fitting it. If we look at its statistics here, you can see that it has 2 high slots, 1 mid slot, and 2 low slots. It is insurable, so you can repair it if it's destroyed, and then for small laser operation skill, you'll gain an additional 8% small laser damage, which of course goes up to a maximum of 40 at full level 5, and a small laser capacitor need reduction of 10%, down to a 50% reduction again at small laser operation level 5, which means of course if this is a ship you want to fly for a long period of time, small laser operation is the skill for you. And as with most of the Tech 3 frigates, it does have a frigate command bonus as well, which is plus 4% armor resistance, obviously up to a maximum of plus 20. That is the amount of resistances on the armor, not the actual hit points of the armor itself. It means your armor is less likely to take damage, or it takes less damage as you go along. Looking at an Amarr ship's stats here, as I said, you can see the power grid output it tends to be a little bit higher than other ships of a similar size, as does capacitor. That's worth noting if there are other weapon types you intend to use, decomposers, that you can see that these are the kind of ships that those might work nicely on. Now, if we look otherwise at its statistics, its defense, you can see 333 shield hit points, 466 armor hit points. This is, of course, an armor tank, which is fairly common for Amarr, in fairness. If you start with Amarr, you're going to be looking at armor tank ships for the most part. Now for me, for this particular ship, I've gone here with the small pulse lasers. These are the short range ones. I've gone with those because I'm using this kind of as a PvP build, as a quick throwaway frigate that I can charge into combat and just blitz people with. That means the middle slot here, I've gone for a small energy Nosferatu. That means I can get up close and personal. I can whack the energy Nosferatu on them, start draining their capacitor and keeping mine topped up. You can also swap that for a warp disruptor if you think they're likely to flee. Ultimately, I've gone for this kind of against foes that I'm sure aren't going to run away, looking at fleet engagements, that kind of thing. The low slots are, of course, a propulsion system. I've gone for a small afterburner. Micro warp drive will work quite nicely here too, but the afterburner for me is enough to get up close and personal. And then, of course, a small armor repairer, just to top things up if I do start taking damage. I should be going fairly fast, so anything larger than me should be struggling to hit me anyway, but any damage I do take, I want to be able to repair there. Now, as for skills, obviously, skilling into a ship like this is going to be very, very obviously small laser operation and small laser upgrade, which you can see I'm training into at the moment. Yeah, for all my bluster of being a Minmatar pilot and hating Amarr, I do really like lasers. They're a great combat system, and one day I do intend to get a SUCCUBUS, but more about that later. Small laser operation and small laser upgrade are, of course, the skills you're going to be wanting to look into here. Beyond that, though, of course, if you are going into Amarr ships, they are armor tanked, so you're going to want to have a look at armor operation. This is a skill ultimately just makes your armor repairers that little bit more optimal. It means that they activate faster, it means that they will use less capacitor when they do activate, just makes your armor repairers better, and of course staying alive is an important skill when you're in a ship like this. Defense upgrade obviously depends on the ship that you're going in with there, same with Spaceship Command. So talking about ships, where would you then go from a Punisher? This is a great little frigate, and it will do tier 3 and tier 4 anomalies well if you're a good enough pilot, but it's not going to take you all the way to the top. Well, the first thing I would look at is a Coercer, so that is what I'm going to show you on screen now. We'll talk about the Coercer, look at its statistics, and then where you go from here. Because early on, yes, combat is going to be one of those things that you're going to be doing a fair amount of. You're going to want to have a ship that you can move into quickly, and the Coercer, again, is tier 3, it's seeded, it is a lot more expensive, but it does have some very powerful bonuses, as you can see here. 3 high slots, 2 mid slots, and 3 low slots means this does pack a little bit more of a punch already, just on the simple fact that it's got 3 turrets. It's also a bit more survivable in that it's got 3 low slots that you can fit out. Its roll bonus is a 25% increase to small laser optimal range, which makes it kind of like the Thrasher. It's the Amarr equivalent of a Thrasher, and then for every level that you have in small laser operation, again you will get laser damage and capacity need reduction. So if you've skilled into that for using the Punisher, the Coercer will carry that skill across into bonuses there. The armor bonus then comes across here from Destroyer Command. Now, this is where things get a little bit more confusing with skills, and we will talk about that in the progression system in just a moment. But ultimately what I'm saying is when you get started with Amarr, with lasers, you're going to want to start out with the Punisher, and then when you've got enough, move up to the Coercer. Now the Coercer, again, I have decided to fit this out with the small beam lasers because I want to make the most out of that optimal range increase. Obviously, if I've got something like a standard, the pulse lasers at 5 kilometers, the 25% increase at 5 kilometers isn't all that much, whereas a 25% increase at 11 kilometers is a significantly larger increase, giving me that longer optimal range here. It means I can be out at 13 to 14 kilometers and still be at a good optimal range with a gradual accuracy fall-off. Fittings otherwise are pretty much the same as previously. I've got Stasis Webifiers, Energy Nosferatus in the mids. The lows are Propulsion, Armor Repair, and in the middle of the low I've got a Mark III Heatsink. Now, heat sinks are the laser equivalent of the gyro stabilizer or the magnetic field stabilizer. Ultimately, this is an item that I'll show you. You can see here my DPS is 72.1. If I were to unfit this, there we go. If I unfit that, that will drop my DPS down to 67.07. Having a heatsink fitted naturally increases your cold DPS. Now, when you're out in the field, you can actually activate that as well, and for the next, I think it's 20 seconds, it will increase your DPS even further. I think it takes this one up to nearly 80 for a 20-second duration before the heatsink goes on a 60-second cooldown before it can be used again. When it's on cooldown, though, it is still back to this standard cold, so you don't lose anything by activating it. It's worth activating when you just need that little extra kick of damage temporarily, and I love having a weapon stabilizer on these if possible, a heatsink, a gyro stabilizer, that kind of thing. Weapon systems are great in those low slots. I tend to go for Propulsion, Repairer, and a weapon system, weapon upgrade system. So that will give you a ship that is very, very good for running anomalies. In fact, this tier 3 ship, I can actually run tier 6 anomalies with. I have done some tier 6 anomalies with these things. You just kite it like in my Thrasher video. Watching the Thrasher video, you'll see how I manually pilot, and you can do up to tier 3 in this ship with these skills. Now, talking about skills, what would your skill progression be? What would your ship progression be? Well, that does depend. If we go into the ship tree and look at Amarr, because Amarr are where all the basic lasers are early on, you can see that we've started here at tier 3, first of all with the Punisher, and then we've moved into the Coercer across the way. Now, it's entirely up to you where you go from here. Work out what your end goal is, and then skill and progress towards that. If, like me, you like your small ships, like your frigates and your destroyers, because they're fast, then what you'd look to do is basically start with that Punisher, move into the Coercer, and then perhaps move up into something like the Coercer 2, which is like the Thrasher 2, and eventually maybe even things like the Coercer Guardian or the Coercer Navy issue. The Coercer Navy issue is the one that packs the real hefty punch, and this, if you like your small lasers, is definitely a direction you might want to head in. If you're continuing with small lasers, once you hit tier 7, you look at things like the Punisher Assault, or indeed I think it's the Dragoon Assault is over here, but that's more drone. It does have skills, though, that help with lasers. Mainly, it's that Punisher Assault there. And then you start looking into Sansha's. Sansha's Nation are a fantastic nation that use lasers as well. You've got the Succubus here. You can see this thing does extra small laser damage based on advanced small laser operation, and then upwards from there as well. Basically, what I'm saying there is, if you want to make small lasers your priority, that's the route you would go. I would skill into small laser operation and small laser upgrade early on, and then either frigate or destroyer skills as required. And when I say frigate or destroyer skills, I mean engineering, I mean command, and I mean defense. For example, if you're if you want to go into the Coercer line, and Coercers are where you're mainly going to stay, get small laser operation up to 4, small laser upgrade up to 4, then destroyer command, destroyer engineering, and destroyer defense upgrade to level 4. before then progressing those into advanced. You may then decide you also want to go back into frigates. As I said, if you're heading up to the Punisher Assault, you can see this thing, it has a lot of firepower behind it, 7.5% increase to small laser damage per skill of advanced frigate command, and that is with 3 laser turrets. Ultimately, that means that if you're going into those, you're going to be wanting to skill into the frigate command as well. But what about if, for example, you decide that no, I want to go for an Omen trainer, and eventually up to the Omen, and of course everyone's favourite Omen Navy issue. Now, all of those skills like advanced, like a small laser operation, or things like frigate command and destroyer command, aren't going to be of any use at all here. Well, first things first, of course, you do actually need to survive in the game up until that point, so you're going to need to put some skill points into some lower level stuff anyway, just to keep you going until you unlock Tech 5, Tech 6 to actually be able to use these. That said, though, there are some skills that you can be going into early on that will benefit this as well. Now, you see, obviously, these rely, if we look here at the Omen at Tier 5, sorry, these rely on medium laser operation skills and cruiser command. Now, you can't train those early on, so what would you look at instead? Well, as I said, Amarr ships are armor operated. So, go for things like armor operation or armor hardening. Remote armor operation isn't one you need to worry about here, that's for logistics. Armor operation and armor hardening are a great way to start there early on, because those do affect every size. Armor operation isn't just the small shield boosters, it's the armor boosters, it's the mediums and the larges as well. Those will all get benefits from that, so it will help you with your frigates and your destroyers, and then will also help you when you're up at cruiser and battle cruiser. Now, beyond that as well, there are of course other skills we can look at, things like targeting, allow you to hit multiple targets, lock onto multiple people at once. Electronic systems, if you want to be using things like warp scramblers, that kind of thing, those are very useful for PvP. Specifically, and on cruisers. Cruisers are almost always going to want webs, simply so they can deal with smaller targets. After that, though, yes, you're going to want to look at going to medium laser operation, or medium laser upgrade. Again, go into 4 of a skill before going into 5. Get to 4 in every skill that you want, then go back and get them into 5. The reason for that is, as you can see here, small laser upgrade is currently training through for me. You'll see that that requires 55,883. If you add level 1, 2, 3, and 4 together and compare that to level 5, you'll see that level 5 is actually about 5 times as much as level 1 through 4 combined. Get everything to level 4, then go back and start getting the bits you want to level 5. That's why I'm doing the small laser upgrades at the moment, then going back to do the cannon skills to 5. Now, ultimately, that should give you an idea of where you want to go. As a basic idea with those, the end game as an Amarr pilot is either to go up to whichever ship on the ship tree here you want, or also to look at either Sanchez Nation, or indeed, where are they hiding? Blood Raider Covenant, there they are on the left-hand side, couldn't spot where they were. Or the Blood Raider. Blood Raider, again, these guys use laser turrets. You can see here the CRUOR has small laser damage and small laser tracking speed. If you are looking at staying in that frigate line, like you want to just use the Coercer and the Punisher, then you can come up to the CRUOR and the SUCCUBUS, as you saw earlier. That makes a great endgame decision for the budding laser pilot, or things like the Ashimu if you want to go into cruisers. Again, if we go across to Sanchez Nation, the cruiser there is the Phantasm, which is an absolutely terrifying PvP ship. This thing genuinely is, it gives me nightmares to see one of these. Now, I actually have done videos as well from the final test on the SUCCUBUS and on the CRUOR. I will put links in the description below. They won't appear on screen now, simply as there's 2 of them, and I can't put 2 cards on screen at once. There will be links in the description below to watch the SUCCUBUS video and the CRUOR video, so you can see what those ships are all about, and if that's the kind of thing you might be interested in as having as an endgame as an Amarr Laser Pilot. Otherwise, I hope that's given you some ideas of what to expect as an Amarr Laser Pirate, what to have a look at, where to start, where to begin, what to skill, and how those lasers operate just that little bit. As I said, do go and check out the other videos on that I've listed. They are in the description below. I'll make sure of that. I know I'm terrible at doing it, but trust me, I've done it this time, I promise. Let me know in the comment section below how you're getting on with lasers and what you think of them. Are these ships that you enjoy flying? And let me know what you think. Otherwise, folks, happy sailing. Thank you for watching all to the end, and see you in New Eden.